I always like to hear about the beginning. So, like Nathan, I guessed before because you were out in Florida last week. You're from
Uh-huh.
Florida, but you just went there for work and sandwiches. But like, where are you from?
I am from Vancouver, Washington, which is not Vancouver, British
Sweet.
Columbia. Not
I
Vancouver,
lived in
British Columbia.
Portland. Yeah, I
What?
lived
Oh,
in Portland for a few years. Nice.
then you know. And it's crazy how many people that you talk to, and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know you're Canadian." And it's but no, not Canadian, but Vancouver,
But
Washington. What?
they are close, which is kind of confusing. Like when I tell people we out here, I'm in Jersey. I fall for the trap of when people are like, "Oh yeah, where are you guys from?" I'm like, "Oh, we're from New Jersey, but we lived in Portland for a few years." And like when you say Portland on the East Coast, they think Portland, Maine, which
Right.
I guess that makes sense, a lot closer.
That's all you know.
But
You know what?
Vancouver, what are they? 5 hours apart? 6 hours apart? The two
Vancouver,
Vancouvers?
Vancouver's, yeah, probably about 5 to 6 hours if you went like straight on I-5. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably that. Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. You grew up there, dude. Nice.
It was an awesome
Huh?
place to. I said,
Yeah.
depending on how the weather is that day, but yeah, that was a great place to grow up. Like running around making movies in the forest. I grew up with a big forest in my backyard, and so we'd like play army. You know, just super awesome, young, all American boy stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, my buddies made skate videos, and so
Okay, that
started
makes
off
sense. Your age, like the
right
401 videos, late 90s,
the
early
CKY.
2000s.
Remember
Yeah,
CKY?
CKY. Hell
Yep.
yeah.
So we were all into that, but I wasn't a skateboarder, so then I was sort of like, all right, well, you hold the camera. So it started off like that, and this is
Wow.
like elementary school, and so I was doing that, and then stole my dad's camera, and then we were like, let's start making our own movies. Blair Witch Project came out. And I was like, well, see,
Nice.
those dudes they made a movie with like the same gear we have. So then all of middle school was us trying to make a horror film about this, like the legend in the local forest. And then we wanted to make a Star Wars fan film that kind of got pretty big, like all the prequels were coming out. So we were experimenting we painted a whole wall in our garage blue. And actually, one of my
Nice.
favorite things we did, we wanted to do a speed bike chase sequence. And so we painted the wall blue, and then we put a bicycle in front of the wall and shot a profile shot of us on the bicycle going like this. And then for the plate, we took our tripod out to the backyard and we Scooby-Dooed it. So if you ever watch like a chase scene in an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon, it's the same background just over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Crouched underneath the tripod, and then we spun the camera really fast, so the camera's just spinning around. And then you got that sense of motion blur. So then that was our background plate for us on the bikes. So yeah, we would just mess around, just doing stuff like that. And high school, I totally hijacked my curriculum. I turned every class into a film class. I was always writing
Nice.
screenplays, and my whole senior year was like, how do I just make movies all the time? So I like lined up photography classes, and then we didn't have a film program, so I wrote a curriculum for a film program, and we just made movies all the time, and came to LA and kept making movies and started getting PA jobs. Had some really cool PA gigs, and yeah, and then like the coolest, it all really came together in 2009. I started working as a camera prep technician for James Cameron.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
his 3D camera company called Pace, Cameron Pace 3D. So that was the first time that I was like face to face with Hollywood, and it was so awesome.
And
So,
how
so,
old are
so.
you at that point? I'm just trying to ballpark. You're probably pretty young, like 20, 21.
Yeah, probably like 22, 23, 24, somewhere in there. Let's see. What year was
Who came
that?
out to LA with you? Was it solo or did you have like
Just
buddies? Your buddies? Oh,
no,
okay.
buddy. No, it was just there wasn't anything else that I felt like I had to do this. It was like go make movies, which is what I'd always done my whole life, or what? Or like what am I going to do? Like I wasn't a great academic student. I played music, but I was the music program at the high school I went to was really really like an award-winning music program, but I was
Oh,
always kind of the worst in the group, like I was just good enough to hang. but everyone else went on to be teachers or studio musicians, and I was like, I just wasn't that good. So I was just like, I don't know what else. Like, I don't love anything else the way I love telling stories. So I just have to go
Yeah.
and figure it out. So I just moved down here and just, I don't even, there was like my first PA job for some weird reality show. To this day, I don't know how they got my phone number. It's so strange. Like straight up, like I just don't know. I remember as Jared Brom is the guy's name who called me. Super cool guy. But yeah, I don't know how. And I think he and I have even spoken about this. Like, how did you get my number? He's like, I have no idea.
Fate.
Um, yeah. And then it was just from that point on, it's so weird because you can trace back like every job I've had, you can kind of like trace back to your very first job in some way. You're just always meeting people and and then this person introduces you to this person and yada yada yada. And and so yeah, but working at Cameron Pace was I got to be a part of the prep for Scorsese's Hugo. I'd prepped
Wow.
Life of Pi, Final Destination 5,
Oh,
Shark
wow.
Night 3. I was on set for Cirque du Soleil Worlds Apart. Like I lived in Las Vegas for a couple of months shooting that movie. Um, James Cameron asked me to go on TV with him. I was on Attack of the Show. Do you remember that TV show?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, was it on the E channel or something?
Was that no? Wasn't that on?
What was it
Wasn't it like a
on?
gaming channel? No,
Yeah, something
was it
like
a weird
that.
channel? Because that's where Olivia Munn
Oh,
started. She was on Attack of the Show, right? Was she on it then?
that's where she's from. Yes. And
Oh,
when I
okay.
got just left, so I did not get to see the Mun.
Oh man.
I know. It's all right. But yeah, so I was on TV, and that was pretty cool. I had friends calling me. It's like, did I just see you on TV with James Cameron? I was like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
just a typical Tuesday for me now.
Pretty wild. That was
Yeah.
pretty wild. X
So all
Games.
this time, are you still shooting on your own? Obviously, you're working at that, but it's like one of those things. Like even while you're working, like when you're not working, you're still kind of
Yeah,
like honing your craft because that's how you get
yeah,
ahead of
playing.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really looked at it like getting ahead of people. It was just that's what I was hungry to do. Like if I
Yeah.
wasn't, it's to this day, if I'm not creating something, I feel there's like an internal guilt, which I go to therapy, I work on to try to get over it because you want to just chill sometimes and just like
Yeah.
it's okay to just be, but I just have to be creating something. It's my friend Nene calls it a blessed unrest, and it's just this like there's this thing inside you. You're just like I just gotta be creating, and
Yeah.
so yeah. So yes, there's always like a day job, and that can even be now as like a director or cinematographer. You're like, cool, that sounds like a great gig. I'll go do that gig, but you're kind of always angling like what am I going to do for me on this thing, and then what will this afford me the ability to do for me, like after this thing. So yeah.
So you mentioned before I cut you off before X Games. So you're shooting everything. You're shooting
Yeah, we did
sports
everything.
too.
Well, all things 3D. So this was like 3D was booming. So this is in the
Yeah.
wake of the
Yeah.
first Avatar. Then now it's this, and this is they hadn't really figured out post conversion stereo yet. They were developing the software to do that, but still the purest philosophy was if you want a film in stereo, you should shoot it natively in stereo, which means two cameras, and you either are going to do a side by side rig, so the two lenses or the two cameras and the whole lens and everything is right here. But the problem is that with and this we would have had, they were just phasing out 2/3 inch cameras, so that would have been the Sony F23, and so it's actually F23 for a 2/3 inch chip, and those were pretty good cameras. I'm trying to think. I think Speed Racer. Take this with a grain of salt, but I think Speed Racer was shot on the F23. So that was a pretty cool camera. But then when you moved up to a Super 35 sized sensor, now everything is bigger. So the front element on your lens is bigger, and so you can only get your lenses so close. And so actually what James Cameron was experimenting with was, can we shave down the lenses so that you have a flat edge so that these lenses can get close, because the lenses up front are the entry point for light coming in is such that then by the time you get all the way back to where the sensors are pretty far apart. But for good stereo, you want the sensors to kind of be as far apart as your eyes. Because then when you watch something back in 3D, if the sensors are wider than your eyes, it can kind of make you like feel sick to your stomach. So the game you're always trying to play is how do we get those camera sensors to be the same interocular distance, is what we call it, the same distance between your pupils. So then to combat this issue of like you couldn't have two cameras physically get close enough to do this, then they built what's called a beam splitter rig. So now you have one camera inverted shooting into a mirror at 45 degrees, and then the other camera is shooting through the mirror. So it's a two-way mirror.
Oh my
So
god.
one camera shooting through this mirror at 45 degrees, and then the other one up top shooting down into it and actually filming the reflection of an image on that mirror. So just this piece of mirror is like $8,000 for a
Oh
mirror.
my god.
And then the whole rig is just like crazy looking. And so they did like beam splitter rigs. That was Tron Legacy, Pirates of the Caribbean 4, Scorsese's Hugo Cabret, Life of Pi. All of those films were predominantly like your A camera is a beam splitter camera. Because what that allows you to do then, because you're not physically getting your cameras close together, you're shooting, so you can actually calibrate them so the cameras are both shooting the same image. So your interocular distance can become 0. And then that gives you the ability to slowly dial up your interocular distance. And the greater that distance, that separation, the greater the 3D effect. So James Cameron will always
Whoa.
talk about, he's like, what's your 3D budget? He's like, if you really want to have a good 3D experience, you have a 3D budget. So then you're constantly, that's like the artistic choice of like, well, how 3D should we make this shot? And so his philosophy is kind of keep it pared back. Don't go like full blown out 3D all the time. Kind of keep it really calm. And then for those big set pieces, then maybe you really kind of you increase the interocular distance, you really increase the 3D-ness of the shot. So it was a trip to like learn all of this as a young person. You're just going like, it was like being in college, and being at school. It was really cool.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's the best way to learning on the job is, you go to school for 4 years. Like,
Right.
you're going for a career, but you're never really actually in the shoes of what you want to do, especially to learn, at a place like that with James Cameron. That's
Yeah.
crazy that the camera rig. So is that why like because you're right, that was like that first spell of
Yes.
3D. Like that was like the bit. Well, besides the 80s
Right.
3D, that they had the 80s phase of 3D.
Did you ever go to Disney and see Captain EO?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a shame. I don't think it's there anymore. So Captain EO was a 3D music video, like Purple Rain. It was like a 20-minute experience with Michael Jackson as the star.
No,
But it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola and shot by Vittorio Storaro, who shot Apocalypse Now. And they shot it in native stereo, 70 millimeter IMAX. So they had two IMAX cameras shooting side by side. But the thing is it's friggin' IMAX cameras shooting side by side. So that film experience can be a really disorienting one because again, the interocular distance was so great. There's a fly flying around me. The interocular distance is so great that people kind of had a hard time getting on board with it. So it was good that it was only like a 15, 20-minute experience because you're sitting there theater going like, whoa, like this is pretty intense. But like, no, for real though, like crazy technology, like IMAX cameras. Like this is like Nolan's wet dream, like we're going to do not one 70 millimeter camera, but two, like it's crazy. But yeah, for a long time, that was at Disneyland, Captain EO. If you ever get a chance to see Captain EO in 3D, it's wild. It's really cool.
Yeah,
So
I'll check it out. We have family out in LA. We've been to Orlando, but we haven't
yeah,
gone to Disneyland yet with the kids. That might be the next trip when we're out there. But no, that's pretty wild because you're right. It's so funny with like 3D. There's the phases. They have the 80s, like the Friday the
yeah,
13th. They have the horror
yeah,
3Ds, and then that era that you're talking about. And then because remember 3D TVs were huge for like there was like this small window. I feel like it was a year. I was just like, oh, 3D TV, it's where it's at. They would like have
yeah.
Comcast by us would have like a free 3D channel. Then it just like fizzled out.
Yeah. It is expensive. The glasses are uncomfortable because the 3D TVs had active glasses, and so the glasses have to shutter sync, and so they're
Ah,
flickering
okay.
between different. So the TV uses its refresh rate to show you two images so fast that you can't really see, and then the glasses sync up so that one eye is operating at the right eye shutter refresh rate, and then the left eye is flickering at the left eye shutter rate. So you're only seeing one image, per coming from the TV. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
And
sounds like it.
so yeah, no, people weren't stoked on that. And then just, stereo production of a film is expensive because it's twice as many cameras, right? Because like every camera rig is actually two cameras. So if you think about the traditional budget of a Hollywood movie, now you're doubling it.
Yeah.
And so they started to get really good at what's called post conversion. So you shoot your film in mono on set, and then they would do a few different tricks. Like they could shoot plates. Are you familiar with like what plates are?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you shoot plates, and so then that way, because the reason you need to shoot a plate is because you have to understand what's behind the thing that you're going to set your convergence point on. So your convergence point is these two cameras are going to intersect. Your fields of view are going to intersect at a point, and that point of intersection is called your convergence point. And your convergence point is the screen. So anything that happens in front of that convergence point is popping out of the screen at you, and anything that happens behind it is depth. And so you have to understand, okay, well, this eye is going to kind of see, my right eye is going to see around to the right a little bit. So then you shoot a plate so that you can, when you manufacture this frame to lock in that convergence point, you can kind of know like what's there, like what's around the thing. So they just kept experimenting with different ways to do this, and now, I mean, the software is beyond. Like, it just blows my mind what people can do. So
Yeah. And then like Star Wars tried to cash in on that when when they re-put the movies out in like the 2012, and they weren't even doing like actual like 3D. It was more like just pulling things forward. So like when you're watching with the glasses on, like things just look closer. Like nothing
right,
really moved too closer. Jurassic
right.
Park was, I think, the one of the best that did it. The original Jurassic Park they re-put in the movie theater. It was like pretty good.
I missed that. I didn't see that.
The
The original.
Raptors jumping through the ceiling looked like they were coming out of the screen. It was really good.
Yeah, there's so many cool things that come and go to theaters that you're always a little bit bummed. Like, I just wanted to go see Return of the Jedi in the theater. Period. This past
Oh yeah,
May, um, and yeah, I missed it. I wasn't able to go, but this is great getting to go back. If you some of those classics, if you haven't seen them on a big screen, it's so awesome when they bring those back to go and check them
yeah.
out. It's
In the
different.
'90s, when you were young, like just before the prequels came out, I don't know if
Hmm.
you were too young then, but when they redid all those movies to like set up the prequels, I think it was 96, 97, 98. They
Yeah,
did the original three films, and it was still pretty cool. Like my dad
amazing.
saw them 20 years prior, so it was pretty
Yeah,
neat.
yeah.
So back to you, Nathan. So like from there, you're working with Cameron, and then
Hmm.
what was like the job? Because obviously you were shooting movies as a kid, so it wasn't
Hmm.
like you're just a camera operator. You had this vision for like the full
Hmm.
like directing and doing all that. So like from there, what was like the first like? Because there's a lot of things on IMDb. I know some aren't like correct, but there's like things you're working on first credit, and this might be when you first got out to LA. Seventh and Hill, still
Yeah.
photographer for like a short film. Was that out in LA or still back home?
No, that was here. That was here.
Cool.
I met this super cool guy, Ryan Postis. Um, he's just doing awesome stuff. If you look up Ryan, he's always been a really cool visionary, and he and I hit it off. And he gave me a chance to come and just help him make this film. They shot that on 35 millimeter. We shot down in the Diamond District in downtown LA. That was just a super cool experience. But yeah, I did like some production design stuff. Like I was helping set up shots and just help. It was like I was just kind of like hanging out, like helping any way
Yeah.
I could. It was cool to be a part. I think we had to do reshoots, and my buddy Anthony Rigo flew down from Vancouver, Washington. We had made movies together in high school. I was like, dude, come help me make this movie with these cool dudes. And so he came down, and yeah, that was just a really fun experience. But yeah, that was a long time ago. Was that 2007?
That's what it has on here. But it's like it's all about just being on a set. Even like,
Yeah,
even if you obviously getting paid's great, but it's like the experience is like a huge factor too. So
yeah.
what would you say the first time? Obviously, like working with Cameron, going on Attack of the Show, like being
Hmm.
involved in so many like huge projects. But was
Hmm.
there something like individually, like another thing you did after that? Because there's like somehow you're working on Real Housewives or like a Bieber music video.
Well, Bieber was because it was 3D.
Part of that, okay, yeah,
So that was all. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's varied, right?
yeah,
It comes from just saying like yes and just being excited. Like, so I'm kind of always just so Bieber was I was a 3D camera assistant for that. So I was pulling convergence. So you have someone pulling focus and then someone pulling convergence. So that's what I did on Bieber, and that was at Madison Square Garden in New York. That was cool.
nice.
And then Housewives was I want to operate a camera. Like I don't want to be a career assistant. I want to shoot. And it's like, well, if you want to shoot a movie, good luck doing that before you're 50 years old. I was like, got it. And I was like, I've been, I was like, maybe I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I was like, I don't know if I really want to do. I don't want to pull focus for the rest of my life. I want to be
Yeah,
more, So it's like, yeah, maybe movies aren't right for you. Maybe you should go do TV. And it was really easy to become an operator in reality TV. So I went and did that, and I learned a lot about lighting, especially beauty lighting. Those women, I forgot who are the DP for the first season that I worked on of Orange County or Beverly Hills, some really solid cinematographers. But they handed us as camera operators this lighting diagram. It was like, this is the look of the interview. And man, for just like a lock off sit down interview, I think we would use like 37 lights.
wow,
I mean, it was just really wild, really, really, really wild. But I learned so much about beauty lighting and eye lighting and hair, like clamshell lighting, like all these old school techniques to light up these women. And so that was really cool. And then I got to travel with reality TV and meet some phenomenally talented people, work on some really cool shows, and just shoot, just practice because it's storytelling too. Like that's the cool thing about reality TV is you don't get a take two. So you really develop an ear to listen for story in the moment. You can't kind of zone out and you're just sort of like holding a shot and like, is it in focus? Yes. Okay, great. When do I go? You know, she's talking about if you're shooting a reality scene, she's talking about so and so over there, and in the back of your mind, you're kind of going like, oh, well, where are they at? And then I'm gonna have to go over here. And then sometimes you'll be filming a scene with 2 or 3 people, and you're by yourself. So then you have to make choices in the moment of, okay, I've been filming Doug talk for a minute,
yeah,
but Doug's talking to Nathan, so we're gonna have to pan over to Nathan to get like a cutaway shot. But when's a good time to do that? So you're listening to what
yeah,
he's going to
yeah.
say. It's like so you're making all these editorial choices on the fly, and so it's a great education. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, no, and you're like you said, you're operating a camera, and it's so terrible. So, did you really feel that when somebody said that to you? Like, if you want to work on a movie, like you're gonna have to be 50. Was that something like
Oh yeah.
like you felt like that was serious? Because obviously you changed that, right? You're not 50.
No, but I also, I have peers that played the game and they went the traditional route and now they're doing, I don't know. I mean, like we're all doing cool stuff, but um, like what's Nick's last name? There's a couple of camera operators that a buddy of mine was the Steadicam operator for um, the last season, 2 seasons of Stranger Things. So he's
Oh,
doing
okay,
so
cool.
well. And then the camera PA on Transformers 3, I think it was, he's now like Nolan's Steadicam operator.
Oh wow.
So there are guys that were just like nose to the grindstone and they stuck it out, and they did like 15 years, and then they got their shot. And so, that's there. But I do like being a director of photography because I get to influence the storytelling more. And I think on a big film, not to say that Steadicam operators don't influence story, they absolutely do, unquestionably. And on really big movies, I mean, like sometimes the camera operator talks more to the director than the cinematographer even does. I've got friends who have told me crazy stories about working on huge, huge, huge movies where that's the case. But what I love about being a director of photography is, you know, being the sort of like, I mean, to put it plainly, like you're the lens through which the story passes, So it's like really finding that point of view and walking into a moment going like, we have the power to convey anything. So what are we trying to convey? And there's the words, and how do I turn the words into an image? And that's the most exciting thing for me. And so that's why I love being a cinematographer. And so I just kept pursuing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just love it. Yeah.
How long did you? How early on? So you've done Steadicam operating?
Well, not no. I would never call myself a Steadicam operator. I bought it was called a Glide Cam, and I had a Glide Cam back in like 2011, 2012. But that was like super rinky dink. It was it had like the vest and a little arm, but this is before there was like wireless focus was widely available. So I put a 5D Mark II on a Glide Cam, and you would set a focus point, and just kind of rock it. And just if you had to do like a close up of someone, you had to hold that distance to keep them in focus. Like because if you change
Yeah.
distance, or they go to focus. So, but it was enough to know when I talk to my Steadicam operators, I know what I'm asking them to do. Like I don't ask them unreasonable requests. They're like, "Oh, you can't. Well, why can't you? Why can't you just?" And they're like, "Dude, because we can't, right?" So that's the cool thing about kind of tiptoeing into someone else's job, just to know enough to know how to have a creative conversation about what's possible.
And they
But
respect that too if you're asking like the right questions about like
I think
what they're
so.
using and how. I talked to this guy Charles Papert. Does that name
Mm.
ring a bell at all? He was like a steady. He's worked on like a bunch of cool stuff, and he became like from his steady camera operating days. He ended up being like the cinematographer for a lot of like Comedy Central shows. Like he worked on Key and Peele for the whole series run. They somebody liked the way he did it. So he went from that show to another comedy, but he was like a steady cam operator, and then he was like teaching classes for it,
Mhm.
but he wasn't able to get on sets. Like he was teaching the operators in Hollywood, but it was still that thing because he was pretty young. It was like, all right, well, thanks for teaching us. And then he finally broke through. I think his first movie that he did that for was either I think it was Major League 3, which I interviewed him for, or it was God, the one with Ed Norton and with the white supremacy. I should know off the top of my head, but
History X, not
yeah,
American.
American History X. Yeah, that was one of his. Yeah, he worked on that. That was one of his first movies.
Wow, that's that's a pretty cool project to
Yeah,
work on. Pretty
yeah,
wild. Yeah.
yeah. His reel, I forgot what his reel was, but he said the guy who hired him wasn't even paying attention when he put the tape in and was like reading a newspaper. And then when the tape stopped, he says, "Okay, you got the job." But that's
Yeah.
how Hollywood is, right?
Sometimes that's all it takes. It's like, and you can't question it, right? You just like, it's
Yeah.
just, I was meant to be here. It was always meant to be,
Yeah.
Go with it.
So I know IMDb is not 100%, but I always think it's pretty cool if this is right, just because
Hmm.
what you said earlier. Did you work on Blair Witch in 2016?
Yeah. I worked on the camera tests.
Dude,
So,
that's the full circle. So you're with
yeah.
your buddies in 99,
Yeah.
and I remember like before the internet when I saw that in the movie theater, it was like
Yeah.
even though I think I was in 7th grade, I can't believe how dumb I was, but I'm like, this is real, dude. Like I remember it felt so real.
Yeah. The end of that movie still freaks me out.
Oh,
It's just,
still. Oh, dude.
yeah.
Because it felt real. Like the way it was filmed, like you said, like you know, as a kid, you can have access to your dad's equipment, and this is like what they shot it with. But it felt so real. Like when you're watching the movie and the one guy's going nuts, like, you know what? I threw the map in the river. Like he's like
Yeah.
going crazy. But when you see the him standing in the corner, it's like it's I don't know, it's just
That's
still
wild.
good.
Yeah. I think so. I like it. I
And
love,
then you got to work on that, which is cool. Like 2016. 17,
Yeah.
18 years later.
Yeah. It's a trip. Well, there was, dude, this past Christmas was wild. I went home um, back to Portland for Christmas, and I wanted to watch Avatar: The Way of Water in the same theater that I watched the first Avatar in. So I went with my girlfriend and her family, and that was a wild experience, man. It's just like I remember going to that theater and seeing Avatar in 3D, and that was in what 2007, also 2006. So I would have been like, I would have flown home from LA for the holidays probably, and it's like, wow, this is a trip. This is
Yeah.
wild. And then what is that? Is that 16 years later, 15 years later that I'm watching the
Yeah.
sequel? Now my name is in the end credits. It's like
Yeah.
wild, wild.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah,
Very cool. It's like those full circle moments. You think about why you got inspired to do anything, or person that you inspired them, and then you meet them. Obviously, I'm sure growing up, like James Cameron, like how many movies that
yeah,
and it's like you're talking to him and getting advice from him and learning from him. So, just
yeah,
that in itself is pretty wild.
yeah. That every day on set on Way of Water was just sort of like, what is happening right now? Like this is just so. It was just such a trip. Um, yeah, man, such a trip. You just be sitting there looking around and going like, what is even? It didn't feel real, Doug. Like it really didn't feel. There's this weird, unexplainable part of me that was like, oh, this is this thing that's happening that no one would ever believe, and it's probably not real, and there will never be because it's so monumental. Also, because like I was working on Way of Water in 2017, and
Yeah,
it
which
came
is
out.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out in 2022. So, it's like no one's ever going to see this movie. It's not real. It's not a real thing. Like, there's no way that this is like the Avatar. It's just a trip. You're like, I'm here, and then it comes out. You're like, wow, wow,
Yeah.
so wild, so
It's
wild.
it's wild because a movie was planned to take that long. That's like the wildest part. Because other movies, it's like I was watching an interview like 2 months ago. Jamie Foxx actually filmed a movie
Oh yeah,
with Robert Downey Jr.
yeah. This is very famous. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's like, oh, he's never gonna put the movie out. Jamie
yeah,
Foxx
no,
will never put the movie out. Because I think in the movie, I think Robert Downey plays like a Mexican or something,
yeah,
like something crazy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So, but yeah, that happens. Like movies get shelved forever, like Batgirl. Like it's really crazy to think about. Movies get all this money spent in them. It's like, yeah, it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's wild. I had my gaffer worked on an Apple commercial that was directed by Inarritu. It's directed by Inarritu, shot by Lebeski, by Chivo. So they did this like huge Apple commercial back in the day. Never released it.
Yeah.
Apple was like, nah. Like they spent like millions on this commercial. And I was like, nah. Wow. Okay.
But with Avatar, wait, that was like the plan. It's gonna take this long. I mean, I'm sure
Well,
COVID probably put a hiccup on it.
yeah, the COVID put a hiccup on it. And then, I think the plan was always, I mean, just, you know, I don't know Jim so well that I'm on the inside. But I know that it's going to be done when it's done, And it's like it can't take forever, but also it can't be not done, So it's like how much money can we throw at it? Um, he has so many superpowers. Both him and John Lando have, and then also Richie Bainham, who won the Academy Award for visual effects. Those guys have such an awesome combined superpower to know the most economical way to wield that much money because it's the most expensive movie ever made. So you're not just throwing money blindly at problems. You're doing things really economically to accomplish something that's A, never been done before, and B, we're going to get it done. We're going
Yeah.
to finish it. It's going to look amazing. And gosh, it's just so awesome, to watch people at the top of their game just crushing it. It's just incredible.
And what's cool is when you go back, because I interviewed somebody that was in Piranha 2,
Sick.
James's very early movie, and he only I think he ended up only directing, I think, like 75% of it. But
Hmm.
it's funny when you go back and watch these movies, even if you go back and watch, I wouldn't even say like the first, the Hills of Eyes, like
Hmm.
the sequel, and you're like, you're seeing these guys, Wes Craven young, Cameron Young, and you just see like it's like, you know, Piranha 2, the piranhas are flying at people, they're hiding cadaver, like craziest shit off the wall. But it's like it looks really good. You felt like you were watching Jaws. Like that's how well done the movie was shot. So you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this guy can get, he's gonna obviously be something. And then everything took off like the next year, I think, or 2 years later. So
Well, I was having this conversation with another director friend of mine, and I think the most important thing to have when we make, because I shoot, like I shoot low budget movies with my friends, and it's the best.
yeah,
We have the best time because we're doing our own thing. It's like I don't care how the movie's received or who watches it. Like we're having fun. Like we're making movies. But what's the difference between a bad movie and a good bad movie? Um, and I think it's just perspective. I think it's you know no one tries to make a bad movie, but if you go in with a strong point of view and a strong perspective and a love for cinema, you can't help but make a pretty good movie. So I think that that's what's apparent when you watch, filmmakers that we think are great, and you look at their early work and you go like, yeah, there's a strong point of view here. Like they see it, and then you just unequivocally pursue what you see in your head.
yeah,
People going like, and you can't sit around, and filmmaking by committee never works. It just doesn't work. People wonders it's like, how come I don't like, like all these shows, or how come I don't like all these movies? It's like, because like 30 people told the director what to do.
yeah, yeah.
It's like he didn't get to just show up and he's like, this is what we're doing and piss off. It's like, no. He had to say, okay, well, all right, so and so wants this scene, then okay, we'll do that way for them, and then so and so, then they want, and it's like, and and again, like I know people, and I've heard stories about filmmakers that are working at a high level, and they're super burned out. It's like if friends of friends have worked on big films that we don't need to name names, but it's like
Yeah, yeah.
they're like, oh, you want to know why that movie sucked? I was in the room, dude, and I saw that person having to answer to the executives, and the executives are just like, I think it should be more green. Can we make it more green? And they go back to their phone, and you're like, "What?" It's
Yeah.
like, right, just make it more green. I don't care. Fine, and it's not their movie anymore.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
TV is
So,
bad with that. I've talked to some TV directors, and they've said like, they don't want to say too much, but it is hard on some shows because it's not like you're going to go in and for the viewer when they're watching CSI Miami, this week, next week's got to look the same. So
yeah,
you're going in there and you're pretty much trying to
yeah,
copy what was done the week before or the week before that and the week before that. And I don't know. It's weird because you're watching all these shows and you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm watching this, but it's a different director for the most
yeah,
part every week.
yeah,
Like it's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So
Did you
Nathan,
listen?
here's yeah. What were you saying?
Well, I know. I just like Russell Carpenter, who shot Way of Water. He was just on Deacon's podcast, and he was talking about getting fired off of like one of those procedurals because the director came in for the next week with all these great ideas, and he was like, "I love this. Yeah, let's do that." So he starts doing all this stuff, and the studio comes out like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, my job is to tell the director, no, you can't do that because we have." Man, he's like, "I don't want to play this game," so it didn't
Yeah.
work out, but yeah, you're totally right.
No,
Yeah.
it stinks. But I guess it stinks for the director, but for the audience, I guess some people would be like, "Hey, this looks totally different this week." But it would be kind
Yeah.
of fun. Like I don't know if you watch After Party on Apple. That's
Mhm.
like a fun thing they did. It's mostly comedians in it, but what they do is there's like a murder. But what they did the first season, I haven't watched second season yet. The first season, each episode was shot different. So
Great.
like Ike Barinholtz's episode was kind of like a action movie. Like it was like he was in Fast and the Furious the way it was like shot. And then the other one was like more of like a French art film. And they do like all the different based on how the character is in the show. But no,
Mm.
it's clever to do things like that. But those shows that are, on every week, like Grey's Anatomy is gonna look the same no matter who, no matter when you tune in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So for you, because obviously filmmaking is different nowadays. Obviously, what goes into it, I think, is like the XYZ of it. It's the same. Maybe obviously the equipment, things like that, are different. But like,
Yeah.
what does it take to get to that next level? Because obviously your goal, and you want to do it way before 50, and I think you will, is to be a cinematographer on like a major film. Like it, but it seems like it's the gap is so much. I don't know. Maybe it was always the same way, but do you feel like it's like what's the steps to get there?
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like I think I definitely have friends who will maybe get there before I do because they've played by the rules a bit better than I have. Um, like it's just I don't know, like, but it's just like that goes back to like who I was in high school. Like I was never the person who's like give me a homework assignment. I was like, nah, like
Yeah.
I don't really feel like doing that. I'm gonna do something else. Like I've always wanted to do it my way for better or for worse, and so you know working I really want to shoot a James Bond movie. That's my goal for sure. Like,
Nice.
I want to do a James Bond movie. And if I can't shoot a James Bond movie, I'm going to do something that looks and feels like a James Bond movie. Like I just directed a commercial for a hotel in Dallas, and my pitch was like, we're going to do a hotel commercial, but it's also a James Bond movie. Like that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it really sexy and fun and cool. And they were like, great, we love it. Um,
That's cool.
but
How'd that go? Was it like a local, like a Marriott, or
I will stay tuned. I'll tell you more about it when we get closer
cool?
to the
That's
season. But
awesome, man.
it's a big international brand, and it's a new project that they're developing, and we got to do all of the new branding for this new project. So
Sweet. Was that? Would you say to date that's like your biggest
was very
directing gig?
yes, it's the biggest
Cool.
directing I've had for sure. But
Awesome,
I
man.
directed it and DP'd it. Um,
Oh, nice.
it was so much fun, man. We just had a great time. But what I'm focused on in terms of feature films now is just working with people that make me happy and who are really interested in collaborating. So that's going to be smaller films. So we're just wrapping up a beautiful feature film called Good Bad Things, directed by Shane Stanger, and we're finishing up color like today. We were working on the color correction. This thing is going to be huge. People are going to flip for this movie.
Cool.
Um, and so I want to do this again. Like the whole experience that we had on Good Bad Things, I want to do that again. So I think that that's a more enjoyable experience than you would have on a $100 million movie.
Oh,
Um,
I bet. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just you're with a more tight knit group of people, and everyone's heard. Everyone has a say, and at like an artist level, not like at a studio level where like the studio has the say. That feels much more like a 9 to 5, whereas a film like Good Bad Things is like let's all care a lot about this thing and put our hearts into it, and then put this work of love out into the world to share with people. So by far that was the best experience I've ever had on a feature film, and so I just want to do that again.
That's awesome. And
So
like
yeah.
festivals, things like that. But still, even with that, that's how you can get noticed too, because that's how they. I don't know if it's like the studios or producers. They go to, I'm sure, all the Comic Con, not the Comic Cons, but the film festivals. And they're like, hey, that guy has an eye. It looks good. It's the way it's shot, and then because there
Well, I just
has to
want
be a way for those people to get to the next level. Like there has to be, but I just don't know. Like I've talked to people that are directors, but they get told whenever they would go in, like Griffin First. His dad was Stephen First. You ever see Animal House? His dad was
to.
Flounder in Animal House.
Okay.
So Griffin like grew up sort of in the industry. Like he was a kid on set. Like when his dad was on not St. Elmo's Fire, but St. Elsewhere, like Denzel and so he was just saying, like, man, I always wanted to be a director. So he was like acting, and then he get people be like, hey, do you want to direct? You can direct this horror movie for the Sci-Fi Channel. So he did like 5 or 6 of those. This is
Yeah.
awesome. But then he's like, no, I can't even get. I go for like a drama, and they're like, yeah, but you did this, and it's like, I don't know. Do people do that? I don't think I've ever watched a movie in IMDb. Like before I watch it, put on like look at IMDb and be like, let's see what the director did before this. And it's like, oh, he did like Sorority Massacre 7. Oh, I can't watch this. But I guess the studios do that for some dumb reason. But like just because you make something that might look great, just because it's a certain genre or people are
Mhm.
like certain people are in it. But I think that's the thing that it's still a hard thing to break up to the next level. But I love that you have that passion like that. Like you'll get there
Well, I feel like
in
I'm
your own
here.
way. No, you're
Yeah,
here, but I'm saying like you're happy while you're working. It's not nine to
you
five. You're not staring at the clock. You know.
have like yeah, it's just you know like someone Robert Altman went and talked to the AFI, towards the end of his career, and they were asking him about the films of his that worked versus the ones that didn't work, like his successes versus his failures. And he's like, I've only ever had successes. Like I've only ever, he's like, I don't. Your your metric for my films is that's you. That's your interpretation of what I do. It's like as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, like, I've only ever been working, and I've only ever been having a great time doing it. And it's just a better way to live, because you can sit and you could just be obsessed with getting to a certain point, but I deeply feel that if you're exclusively obsessed with sort of getting to some subjective point in your career, if it's like a monetary value thing, like a budget, I don't know what it is, like what's your goal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd be happy in the same way. Like I want to be happy today. So what I really hope, like good bad things for me, the best outcome would be we get accepted into a great festival, and I get to go and I get to meet some other filmmakers that are making more films like this, and I get to talk to them about like, well, what are you doing? What are you excited to do next? And this is what we're gonna do next, and just meeting other like-minded creators. And then if there's something for us to work on together, great. But yeah, I don't. I mean, super interested to see how this strike that we're going through finishes out. But I've had a number of people say something to the effect of like, "Oh, this is like kind of came out of nowhere, and this happened so fast." I'm like, "Listen, this did not come out of nowhere.
I know.
This is happening since Universal was sold to this like Japanese corporation in the 90s. Like there's a really great book, The Men Who Would Be King, that talks about Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen starting DreamWorks.
Okay.
And and it really kind of, as they are starting their own studio, it's covering the end of studios as the world had known. It was the end of like the Robert Evans and the studio head, and it's the beginning of now like studios are run solely by corporations. So these aren't filmmakers; these are guys with masters in business coming in making the decisions. And so it all started then. So like a conversation about AI taking jobs, it's like the jobs have already been gone. Like they've been being paid less because they don't want creative answers. They want the same product they sold
Yeah.
last week again. So we don't need some crazy weird wacky idea because it's not safe. And if I take a risk and it fails, I lose my job, my share price goes down, and I don't want that. I want the boat, I want the house in France, I want my share.
Yeah.
So let's change it to a subscription model that only benefits shareholders and upper management, CEOs. It doesn't benefit subscription based models, do not benefit artists at all, because you have no way to directly correlate the success of your project to the money that it made for the company. The company's just trying to toe the line. But like with an ad model, Seinfeld knows how good Seinfeld's doing because advertisers are willing to pay X to advertise during Seinfeld. So it's like the show's doing well, Friends is doing well, like that. You can understand that. But when people are just paying the subscription every month, these companies don't really care how good the product is. They just want a product to toe the line. The dude who made Squid Games totally got like hosed on his deal. Like he didn't get any residuals. He didn't get any bonus. Netflix paid him a flat fee, and now there's some reporting that that show made like they're, I don't know, again, like how they figure out how much it made is weird. It's like in additional subscriptions, I guess, but it kind of made $900 million for Netflix. So it's their most profitable franchise to date, and none of that movie went to the guy who created the show.
That's insane.
So it's just, it's like this has all been happening, and now AI is kind of the next big thing where it's the studios are going like, well, great, because AI can't create anything new. That's not how it works. AI
Yeah.
is like, it's your Google Assistant. And so it takes all available information or whatever the AI coder tells it to take from. Okay, pull from this, pull from this, pull from this. And then the AI goes, okay, great, I'm going to pull from this to answer whatever questions you have. So when you give it a prompt like, hey, make me a movie like this, it's just going to regurgitate what it can find on the internet. So studio heads are going like, well, great, that's all we want. We want
Yeah.
what we know works. So, hey, do what worked last week, but spin it a little bit. So I think that like AI is great for these subscription based models, and you know, it's, there's no winning that battle. So like this is why like I don't. You talk about like moving on and like doing the. It's like the whole world's that whole thing is so different that I'm scared I would get to a place where, you know, it's like if I am DPing some big movie, you listen to like the DPs that I love, and they talk about working on these big projects. I forgot what's his name who shot the Han Solo movie, and it's like it's really scary to get to a big studio place like that. You want to take a risk as a cinematographer, and then you've got the studio head coming down, going like, it's too dark. You know, like we don't like the way
No.
that this looks. And this just doesn't sound like fun. What sounds like way more fun is using the democratization of technology, using digital cameras economically, like what I did on Good Bad Things, and working with young artists who want to take risks. And so you spend a little bit of money and you take a lot of risk and you do something original. And you're trying to do things that break the system, that break the status quo, that you just don't see. Because I think people are really hungry for original content, for original IP and things that go outside the norm. Barbie's doing really well this weekend, and that's
Yeah.
a really spin on the property. Oppenheimer is doing double what they thought it was going to do. And every Showtime in LA that is on 70 millimeter film is like sold out, and
Yeah.
it's a heady, it's not a Marvel movie, you know, it's nonstop dialogue for 3 hours talking about physics and science, and it's sold out. So, you know, it's like, yeah, I don't know, I really want to keep making small films that you know, give us the opportunity to experiment and try something different and reach people in a way that we used to. You know, like I want to
Yeah.
affect people viscerally the way that like Taxi Driver affected me or Clockwork Orange affected me the way I saw it. And you just don't see films like that getting made very often anymore.
Yeah, because nobody wants to, like you said, take the risk at all.
Yeah.
They don't want to. And even though it's like they would probably still be fine because they have 90% of all their other movies are a reprint or another Marvel movie that they know is going to make X amount of dollars, then you could
Yeah.
make those risks. Like those studios in the 80s, like Canon Film Group, they would do like the cookie cutter action movie, which I still love watching, like the Death Wish films with aging Charles Bronson or any like the Chuck Norris movies. They would make the money on that, and then they would like shoot these out of nowhere. They would have like Runaway Train, like an Oscar
Mm,
movie with like Eric
mm,
Roberts and John Voight, and then they would have like Barfly, a really young Mickey Rourke in a movie, and like was like a great film. And then they have like all the schlock that they throw out, but you have like
right.
that like happy like pie chart. 90% is gonna be like, you know, it's gonna do what you want it to do, and then 10% like, hey, try something new. But no, so when it comes to the strike right now, like you guys are a different union, right? It's totally separate.
Well, yeah, we had our strike earlier, and um, everyone in my union voted no against the deal. So by popular vote, the cinematographer, the camera guild, local 600, IATSE 600, voted no, we don't like the deal. And our leadership said, we cannot in good faith proceed with a no vote because we already kind of told them we would take the deal. And we were like, well, why did we even vote then, dude? Like, what?
Yeah.
It was so wild. So yeah, I mean, it's just so like, and the camera union. I can't speak for 728, which is the electricians, or 80, which is the grips. They don't help you get work.
Really?
So no, it's a really interesting situation where it's just a permission structure where you can't work on the good projects unless you're in, but also you can't get in unless you work on the really good projects. So you're like catch 22. What am I supposed to do here? So,
Yeah.
my own pathway into the union is a story for another episode, another day. But, it's like to say I'm disenfranchised would be accurate. It's like it's never directly helped me. I've been on the benefiting side where being in the union has been, I've worked like a 20-hour day and I got a sweet paycheck at the end. I was like, great.
Yeah.
But also, if you're working on a great project with a great director and a producer who's a solid human being, I have made not a lot of money, but I have been cared for deeply. Like I've been a part of a family where it's like we all are working really, really hard. We're not making a lot of money, but we're eating well and we're sleeping well and it's safe. So, it's like you can find the unions are great to protect the people who work on these big studio projects where it is like a 9 to 5 job. Um, but they're just going to keep pushing to lower their costs to to profit more, and that's only going to continue. Like there's no interest in art for art's sake. That's not really there. I don't know. It's just, I think you just gotta like just be happy doing what you're doing. Don't waste your time pining for what could be, like there's something else. And if you're super hungry to play the game, then yeah, play the game and have fun. And there's beautiful, beautiful work being done by my peers, on some of those big projects. It's like the pinnacle of technical achievement. A lot of these shows, like the new Indiana Jones, I'm like, technically the most perfect looking film. Not my favorite movie, but like
Yeah.
technically I'm watching, like this is wild. Like it's just so stunning. Like it's just so stunningly beautiful. Um, so it's like, yeah, there's great craftsmanship done there, but like, I just, is it fulfilling? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
It's
It's
all
not,
about, yeah, whatever. It's like whatever works for, Nathan, or whatever works for anyone, like when it comes to life, because you're right, like you want to be happy today. It's not like you're gonna be like, hey, you know what,
no,
in 10, 15 years I'm gonna be miserable for 10 to 15 years, but in 15 years it's gonna be great. But in a year you could walk across the street and get hit by a car. So it's like there's so
that's
many,
exactly right.
like, yeah,
That's exactly right, man. I mean, it's
you
just,
just gotta
a
enjoy
couple
it.
of like family friends that we've had that have passed away in the last couple of years that have been really unexpected has made me think about this even more. We're going like, I want to love what I'm doing right now because
Yeah.
nothing is certain in this life. Nothing is certain. And it's
Nah.
like, oh my goodness, like I would rather go and just, it's just, I got a roof over my head. I'm eating well. I love my car, like I love my hobbies. Like, it's like life is good, like what more do you want? It's like we're
Yeah.
super blessed to live in America. I feel that way. It's just, I just feel so lucky, so lucky. I just, like I live near the beach in Los Angeles. It's like, what more do
There
you
you
want,
go.
man? It's
I
just
know.
so, yeah, life is
So
good.
so we're like right at an hour, and this has been great. Just a few more things, just to like circle
Yeah,
back. You're talking about the AI, and it's so funny. And I know
yeah.
that like people that listen to this are obviously people that like movies and TV and stuff, but it's so funny that the people out there that are like that make fun of Hollywood, make fun of actors, or like people that work in film. But it is so true that trends and things look to Hollywood. Like you'll see
Mhm.
something in a movie or a TV show, and then like a month later, it might be like the next like style trend or something. And it's so
Mm.
silly. Like Barry Livingston, he was one of the My Three. He was on My Three Sons, character
Okay.
actor in a million things. He's been acting since like the '60s. He said something that was so profound online, and he was talking about like, you think AI is just about actors, if it works here, then all other jobs that are able to use it are going to use it. And I'm like, you know what? That's so true. Like, because that's the way people look. And it's so true when it comes to AI, when you mess around with it. Because when it first came out, like I messed around with it. And
Mhm.
it was funny. Because I've been jonesing for a Friday the 13th part 13, like it has to be made. Like they're finally, hopefully, settling this shit between those two guys, Victor Miller and that other guy that's such a douche. But anyway, like they finally figured it out. Like, hey, you own Jason Voorhees, I own the origin story, so that's why some prequels coming out on Peacock, and then hopefully eventually a 13th movie. But I always had an idea of all of the survivors getting together and somehow where they're at Crystal Lake, Jason comes back. So I had it write like a script, and it was really bad. But
Yeah,
the worst part was of it was at the very end, and I don't know. I guess it takes it from like cartoons almost, but it was like, and then what the hell did it say? It said Jason looks at the camera, pulls up his mask, and winks. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? Like, an end of like a, not like Scooby Doo, but like, Jesus Christ. But it's funny, like that silly stuff. But what the studios think is they'll take that and be like,
sure.
oh, well, we know he doesn't wink. We'll make it so he doesn't wink. And then, like,
Right,
that's their idea of taking some regurgitated thing and then just
right.
putting something, having somebody punch it up. Like, really
Yeah,
just have punch
that's
up
it.
writers, no original ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just we can argue and fight, but like already SAG signed like 43 petitions for films to work during the strike.
I
So
saw that.
someone,
Yeah.
so they bought people off. It's
I
like
know.
people got off. Like that's all it is. It's just like, oh, we feel very strongly about the cause and blah blah blah. It's just like any actor working on any of those films is a
I
sellout.
know.
Like they all
Yeah.
took the paycheck, all took the deal. They're like, well, because the people who have the capability of bypassing a strike like this are screwing over the hundreds of thousands of people who don't have the opportunity to work on projects that big. So you've just completely nullified the whole situation. The studios have already won. So regardless of whatever the outcome is for any of this, for any union, for any guild, it's like the writing's on the wall. Like it's over. Like it's over. So stop fighting it and just embrace doing your own thing. The smartest people in the world right now are the YouTube creators, the King Batches and the Adam W's and the Hannah Stockings of the world. Like people who have their own brand and they can do their own thing on YouTube and like that's it. Like you have to be your own creator and you've got to be able to use the technology. So like I used AI on Good Bad Things. I used autofocus. Autofocus is AI. It's using
Oh yeah.
algorithms
Oh
and
yeah.
lidar technology go and it's making a creative choice about where is the focus at. That's artificial intelligence. And I did that so that I could have no, like, the camera crew was like just me. It's like we don't have a lot of a budget. And I was like, well, great. Like let's just use technology to our advantage and not have a huge crew, and then we can stay on budget. So it's like go
Yeah.
and tell story. It's like that's what's happening. Don't get into the film business to get rich. You're a storyteller to be a storyteller. You're a storyteller to discuss and investigate the human condition. Nolan didn't write Oppenheimer to get rich. Nolan investigated a man who forever permanently changed the world that we knew. That's what that
Yeah.
film is about, and like he's a conflicted character, um, and it was a conflicted choice to participate in it. The whole thing is fascinating. That's what art is, man. It's like we have to keep investigating. It's so wild, and I feel like it's unique to cinema. Cinema is beautiful in that it's the culmination of every art form ever invented, right? Like we take painting and photography and music and performance, acting, and we've just meshed them all together, and we've put a motion picture camera now, and then all these other mediums get squeezed through a motion picture camera, and now you have a new art form. But for all of those former art, it's like no one got like rich and famous. Like Monet was not like a rich and famous painter. It's just like, so like Degas wasn't like a gazillionaire. Degas did not have a private jet. Like these
Yeah.
artists like back in the day, like so many of them, would die with no one knowing who they were, and they would become famous for their work long after they were gone. But now we're such a fame conscious society. It's this very American. I feel like it's very American. It's very capitalist. You know, we pursue art as a means to fame, and if that's your goal, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like, you can play that game, and the Kardashians do it really, really well.
They
Um,
do. They stopped their show and then they went on to another
they suck.
network and got like paid whatever. But I think the one thing to not talk too much about the AI and the strike, but I think the one thing that was like eye opening for people was like I've interviewed actors and they talk about like I helped an actor write a book, the guy Larry Hankin,
Hmm.
and he would talk about like, hey, you know what? It's great when I get my residual checks because that helps pay rent and like he has 200 plus credits for, from like the 70s 80s and 90s, and so like that's great, but I saw a thing with Mandy Moore showing a residual check that was 8 cents for
Yeah,
This Is Us, and I'm like, oh my god, that's crazy. Like
it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy that CEOs are making $300 million,
oh,
a year
oh,
or
I know.
something. Like, it's
Any
just,
company, like you should not make 400 times what the lowest paid employee makes. Like it's too much money. Like I know like Bernie Sanders would love what we're talking about right now, but it's true. Like there shouldn't be that much money to like one person. I don't know.
yeah. So all of that to say, we could either sit
Yes.
around just like complain, 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 or we could like get to work. And so, and this is, I'm speaking to myself right now, but I'm writing a feature film with my
Nice.
partner Matt. That we did the commercial in Dallas together, and it's just the technology exists. Like, you don't, shooting on digital is super cheap, and LED technology for lighting doesn't require a lot of power, and we've got plenty of like super talented friends who are actors, and then you can go to places in the world where you show up and you tell them that you're making a movie and people support you. Whereas it's not like there tends to be a thing in Los Angeles where people find out that you're making a movie and they just like, oh, well, I'm going to make your life miserable until you pay me. But you go to
Oh.
some place in the world,
Yeah.
and like, I was shooting up in Portland, Oregon, and we're shooting downtown Portland late at night, and Max, the like, subway train
Yeah. Oh yeah.
down,
Yeah.
it's coming. We're filming in the middle of the road, and these cops are walking. I was like, ah, man, we're gonna get shut down because we're filming in the middle of the street. These cops walk up to us and they go, "You guys making a movie?" We're like, "Yeah." And they go, "Do you want us to hold the train for you so you can finish filming your movie?" We're like,
Wow.
"What?" So it's like,
Nice.
so combine all that stuff, combine the passion, the love, the new technology, and people who just like love. It's like, go tell stories. It's like, and then release it on YouTube. And it'll get
Yeah.
seen. If it's good, it'll get seen. And go to film festivals, it'll get seen. And if people like it, more people will see it. And that's what just really excites me. I put my energy into it. I put my heart into it, and if we just keep focusing on doing things that we think will excite audiences and inspire people to live healthier, better lives, and ask questions, it's like, I mean, great, great.
That's what it's all about. Nathan,
I
last
think,
question before I let you go. I always like asking people this. So when you're
right.
like like when you're working on sets, was there
Hmm.
any mementos that you kept, or did Cameron have any good like goodies that he gave like at the end of the filming?
Did you see Ghosted with Ana de Armas?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Do you remember the bus sequence where they
No.
drive a bus backwards down a hill? Anyway, this is from that bus. I took this,
Really? That's cool.
and then you probably recognize this.
What's
So
that from?
in Avatar,
Oh,
it's the
yeah,
world,
yeah, yeah.
right? And so Cameron, he sent us this is one of the Christmas gifts. So it's a Christmas
Nice.
ornament wood sprite. But then my favorite memento from Avatar, here, hold on, stay right there. Hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are so funny, but when we were working on Avatar, Jim would send us Jim would send us family Christmas cards.
Really? That's hilarious.
It's so beautiful. It's
Yeah,
so beautiful. So yeah, we got like
that's
James
cool,
Cameron
man.
family Christmas cards. So just again, like you were working on the biggest movie, but like amazing people. Like John Landau is like everyone's dad. Like he's so cool. So yes, I have. Well, actually, I have more. One of my favorite things to save. I love saving slates.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so like this is from. So this is actually the slate. Oh, wow, I can't believe I have this, but this is from Ghosted.
Oh, that's amazing, dude.
And then this was when we did Mortal Kombat.
That's awesome.
And then Water Unit, Avatar sequels. And then this one's pretty wild.
Oh my god, dude, that's really cool.
So yeah, some really, really cool. And then this is a movie I shot for the Lifetime Network.
A Christmas Harmony, nice. Lifetime, Vancouver, the other Vancouver, is that where you went?
Lifetime, no, we shot that in Crested Butte, Colorado.
Oh,
But
okay.
the
I know Hallmark has like a little headquarters. All the Vancouver people I've interviewed that like moved back up there, that were in Hollywood for like a little bit, like that's like their bread and butter, like those Hallmark movies
they're
or
fun.
Lifetime. It's a good
Yeah,
place to film. That's cool. I gotta say, like every time I ask that question, not saying I've not saying the actors don't have good stuff. Like John Carpenter gave this guy Peter Jason, he's like a great character actor. He has like the best gifts, like the end of films, usually like leather jackets.
well,
Uh,
that's cool.
but no, there's one guy who's Steven Poster,
Oh, yeah.
cinematographer. Well,
Huh?
okay, so his thing was he lived in John Carpenter's house. Like he bought
Sick.
John Carpenter's house that Carpenter owned when he directed The Fog. So like the jacuzzi scene with Adrian Barbeau is like in that house
Oh, that's
in the
cool.
movie. So
That's really
he goes,
cool.
Doug, you want to see something really cool? And I go, yeah, because he worked on Blade Runner, and he like runs over and he picks something up, and it was like in a set piece. I forgot what scene it was. I think it's the first time when Harrison Ford meets Sean Young, like the first time he meets her, and in the
Yeah.
back there's just like these random like metal pieces on the wall, and he holds it
Yeah.
up, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so cool. He's like, yeah, they said we could take what we want at the end, so yeah, I grabbed
Yeah.
that. I go, what do you do with it? And he goes, I use it as a doorstop.
Yeah. 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 No, but it's like anytime I love tchotchkes. I love little things, but like
Oh, dude,
yeah, I
ones
know
have
it's just
stories like this guy Ron Schmidt, last one, but Ron Schmidt, he worked on The Shield, and he took when Michael Chiklis, like I don't know what he folds up. I think he puts his number on, but he
mm,
makes it into a paper airplane. And he throws like his card, like, and he goes, I picked it up and took it, and I have it on my thing. I'm like, that's like so cool.
so cool. Yeah.
So somebody
It's
else
that
is just trash that would have got picked up and thrown in the garbage, but it has like a memory.
yeah. If when you're out here, if you ever come to LA, there's a fun thing that we can do. We can call and get a drive on um, to the Universal Studios prop house. And so you go there and it's where you would actually go and like rent props. But they have in a
Nice.
case they have like some famous props that are kind of like meh. So like they have the mold for the fertility idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark. So
Really?
like the idol that from the very first like that was cast, like the mold is in there, and then they have like props from Jurassic Park, and they have the wooden ball from Minority Report that says John Anderton on it that rolls down the thing. Like
Yeah.
that little wooden ball is like in there. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Yeah, it never gets old. It never gets old. It's always awesome. And
Slates are cool. I've never seen anybody with slates. Whenever I ask that, nobody's ever had slates. That's pretty cool.
yeah, it's like and my favorite thing, what I like to do at the end of the film I have everyone autograph the back too. So this is
That's
for
awesome.
Mortal Kombat. So this is everyone I could get on my crew. Because that's the other thing too, is it's like, you always think like, well, actors are going to give autographs, but it's like, yeah, actors are cool, but like when I meet the craftspeople who worked on these great projects, when we were doing the commercial in Dallas, I was like, well, I'm going to hire the best there is. My audio mixer, Stacy Brownrigg, he was the audio mixer for Office Space and like
Oh,
Idiocracy.
cool.
And I was like, oh my God, dude. I'm like, you're a legend. You're so, fantastic. It's just so cool. You just like, you meet these people and they're the ones that like, they're the magic makers. It's like, you've got the ideators, the James Camerons of the world. And those people they are who they are. Like we know who these people are. But then
Yeah.
there's the thousands of craftspeople.
Yeah.
Um, Nia Ku, another gaffer. I'm probably maybe even butchering his name. I did this fashion commercial, and I got to hire him to be my gaffer. He was the gaffer for a badass film called Bone Tomahawk. Have you seen
Oh
Bone
yeah, yeah,
Tomahawk?
yeah. With Kurt Russell.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And so it was like, and again, it's like a smaller, lesser known film, but like I'm a huge fan. And then he did Come On, Come On. Did you see that movie?
No, no,
Uh,
no.
Come
I
On,
write
Come
that
On
down.
is so beautiful and makes me cry. With what's his name? Oh my goodness. With Walk the Line with Napoleon, that actor.
John Heater.
No, 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 no. It's super famous. The bad guy from Gladiator. Why am I totally
Oh, Joaquin
Joaquin
Phoenix.
Phoenix? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Joaquin Phoenix. Come on, come on. And so
Okay.
Nia Gaff, come on, come on. And so again, it's like smaller, lesser known film. But I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you're oh my god. And you meet these people and like, and that's when I get starstruck. You meet the crafts people, the women who work. And so I have them autograph. If I ever have a chance to work with them, I have them autograph the slate. Because like
That's
to me, like
awesome.
those are the heroes, man. It's like you guys made I know what it takes to work on these projects and like you guys did it and it's just so beautiful, such beautiful work. So
I love that. Whenever I talk, I remember like one of the first interviews I did. It was a special effects guy, Tim Lawrence, worked on
mm,
like every movie I love, Beetlejuice, like a million things, and he worked on Howard the Duck, and that's one of my favorite movies. And he had these really cool stories about. And he sent me after we were done. He sent me like an email with like 50 like attachment 50 photos behind the scenes. Like he did that whole opening sequence when Howard's like flying through the walls,
yeah.
and he did like the girl duck, like the naked nude girl duck in the bathtub, the vampire duck, and he did all those things. And to me, I'm like, God, it's like, I don't know, it's like the coolest thing. Like I agree with you. Like obviously, if I could meet James Cameron, it'd be awesome. But to like just talk the character actors I've talked to, I'm like, I've seen you in so much. Like Tom
Yeah.
Cruise is cool, but dude,
Yeah.
Stuart Penkin, you're like the biggest vicious asshole boss in like film
Yeah.
history, and it's
Yeah.
like it's neat because I think they appreciate that a lot too. Because I
Yeah.
feel like they have that same thing. Like maybe in their not everyone, but in their minds, maybe like a lesser known film, but they like it's fun, man, and it's cool that you do that because those people it means a lot to you, but I'm sure to
Yeah.
them it means a lot as well.
I hope it does because it's like it's such a beautiful it's making a movie is freaking hard and finishing a film is freaking impossible. And so it's just like,
Yeah.
regardless of what it is, having something that's like we all came together and we did the thing is like that is to be celebrated, I think.
No, 100%, man. Nathan, it's been awesome. This will be out like probably 3 or 4 weeks. I'll shoot you an email and like send you the link and everything. And yeah, let's keep in touch. My wife's uncle's in Rancho Palos Verdes.
Oh,
He's
I
a real
love it down there. Have you been
fancy
down
guy. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. We've been out there twice. We were just actually just in California, but we were at his
there? Okay.
son's wedding up in Santa Cruz. So a little
Oh,
far away,
also,
but
also beautiful.
We stayed in this nice hotel, the Paramount in San Francisco,
Okay.
and Tony Bennett like supposedly this I left my heart in San Francisco. So they have like a statue of him outside. But what was
Huh.
cool, like some of the movies that were filmed there, and right
Yeah.
outside our hotel window was Alcatraz. And
Yeah.
Larry, the guy who helped with his book, he started improv in 1965 out Well, he started Second City and then went out to San Francisco, and he was like in the premier troupe out there. But he was in
Huh.
Escape from Alcatraz. He was
No.
with Clint. Yeah, he was. If you look him up, you'll see him. He was Mr. Heckles on Friends. He's in like a million
Okay.
things, but he
Yeah.
is I would say he's like the third lead
Yeah.
in, or third or fourth lead in Escape from Alcatraz. So he told me stories, and like it was cool looking out every morning, looking at that. I'm like, Larry lived in this little, probably not far from here. He woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning because only one boat went out. One
Yeah.
boat went out. So even like one boat went back. So even like Clint Eastwood, the guy number one in the call sheet, had made like many decisions. He was out with everyone, and he would eat lunch with everyone. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
some good
Yeah.
people out there, man.
It's so bitching, man. It's so much fun.
Yeah, movies
Yeah.
rule, man, and you rule. I'll keep in touch, man.
That'd be awesome. I would love that. Yeah. When you're out here, let's
Totally,
get some
man.
food. That'd be
Totally.
really
If you're
cool.
ever in Jersey, I'll point you to some good sandwiches or something.
Are you, so I just would like take the ferry over there?
No, just you take the train in New Jersey. I'm not too far. Like I'm really only like 45-minute drive to New York City. My
Okay.
train sucks by me. I have to go in the office like once a quarter, so I have to go in for it's like a 2 hour train ride there and 2 hours back, but it's only
Okay.
once every 3 months, so that's fine.
Got it. I'm just now
But yeah, dude.
noticing that it's the Bond VHSs that you have behind you, and that makes me
Oh
so.
yeah, dude. I put all VHS during COVID. I converted this old shed. We bought this old Victorian, and there was this shed in the back of the property, so I converted it. Like I run a cable out here, like because I don't want to wake my kids up. I have a son now who's a year, and I don't want him waking up. And then but
Congratulations.
anyways, thank you. Yeah. So I have all these some random autographs. Like a guy from Death Wish 3 sent me one. Over here
Yeah.
is the guy who played Michael Myers in Resurrection. He was such a
Sick.
cool guy. Another guy, people probably haven't talked to him about it in a while because he hasn't acted or done stunts in a long time. And he sent me that, and it says to Doug, you're next. And he surprised me with it without even telling me
So bad.
about it. But yeah, dude, it's fun.
I don't know.
Meeting
One of
people
my
like you, man. It's good times. Yeah.
it's really cool. One of my favorite Muppet quotes is
Okay. Yeah.
and this is they go to Hollywood where Fozzie is singing. What is he doing? Where he's just like, there's two lines where he's like, "Patriotism swells in the heart of the American bear." Remember that line? He's just like
Is that
singing.
from the? Is
It's
that from
from
the second one? Is that? Oh no, that's Muppet Caper.
yeah,
That
I
one
think that's
behind
the
me.
like the Muppets go to Hollywood. He's like, "Patriotism swells in the heart of the American bear," and then also like he's like, "Ah, a bear in his natural habitat, a Studebaker." Like, I
Yes,
don't know.
that's in the Muppet movie. Yeah, that's in My favorite. It's so funny. Jim Henson, Grover. No one's
Mm-hmm.
fewer than you, and it's like that makes
Mm.
sense. Like, why try to be somebody else? He
Good stuff.
got it. Jim Henson got it. He understood like how as a little kid, if you were really really
Mm-hmm.
looking past everything, it's deep. Like my son is home now, and we're like watching some of that stuff, and I'm like, man, it's really a lot. There's a lot in there.
Did you watch Street Gang?
No, is that a kid show?
A documentary on HBO about the making of Sesame Street.
Oh no, but I should.
It's powerful, really, really
Yeah.
powerful and cool. But yeah, but it's because that was the first thing that Jim Henson did was Sesame Street. Before there were Muppets, there was Sesame Street.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Well, and then even before that, he was Rolf was his first character. I'm pretty sure, and Kermit looked different. If you ever watch old, like when he was on like the Tonight Show, or he was on like what was it, the
that was
Bob
all
Douglas?
after that was all after Sesame Street because what he was doing was he was doing commercials. I think he was just doing commercials like in weird like beer commercials and stuff with puppets, and they were always
Yeah.
counter. And the creators of Sesame Street were like, we need this guy, and he showed up for just watch
So
the
Sesame Street was already on already.
No, he helped
Oh,
create
okay.
Street. It was equal
Okay.
parts Hanson and everyone else.
Cool.
And then the Muppets came out of that, but this needs to
I'll check it
shut.
out.
What is that? It's the
No,
producer.
I gotta check it out.
All right, this has been awesome. Thank you for
What's your
having
favorite
me.
Bond before I let you go?
Oh, dude. Well, like everyone, it's depending on the actor. I forever will have a soft spot for Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay.
I, the most interesting villain that you have like a multimedia conglomerate like is the villain. You know, like he's a true capitalist, right? We're gonna control the world through the news. I think that's a great Bond villain. Um,
Not Robert Davi with his iguana. Yeah.
that one's a little, yeah, that one's fun. The best part about that one is Benicio. That's my favorite part
Oh
of
yeah,
because
yeah. Oh yeah.
that's that's View to It. No, that's Living Daylights, right? Robert Davi is Living Daylights.
That's the second Dalton one. Yeah, that's the second one because the first one's good, like really
View,
good, right?
View to a Kill with that's with Christopher Walken as the bad guy, and then with what's her
Mm-hmm.
name as the S. That one is fun. I like the Robert Davi one because that's the one where Felix Leiter gets eaten by the shark, right? At the
It
beginning of
is,
that
yeah.
one.
But the silliest part is the yeah, yeah. But the silliest part when they arrive to the wedding,
Go
they
on.
they 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 make like a helicopter, a parachute entrance
Okay.
to his buddy's wedding, and nobody says anything. It's like very bizarre. They just land just in time. They take it off, and like people see them land, but nobody. There's no mention of it really. And then his buddy dies, and then that's what kicks off that movie. But I like on what was really cool was the fu to Sean Connery in her Majesty's service or whatever. I can't. I always forget the full name of it. But Lazenby looking to the camera in the beginning of the movie is like, wow. It's like the coolest thing because it was almost like saying F you to Sean Connery. So I think he makes a joke about not being as good looking or getting the good looking girls, but it's like this weird moment in these big movies that people love. And he looks to the camera and it's almost like, because I don't know what it was. Maybe Connery wanted more money or something, but
Yeah, there's a lot of drama there. There's been a couple documentaries that cover it that I'm not recalling right now. But then they also was like who had the rights to certain stories because after they did on His Majesty's Secret Service, that's when then Connery came back and did Never Say Never Again.
yeah, yeah.
It was like that
And then they were
weird one.
filming two Bond movies at the same time at one point.
Yeah,
with in like the late 70s early 80s they were
yeah.
filming like two at the same some weird stuff
That was
but
Never Say Never Again, which is basically just a remake of Thunderball. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I like to scuba dive, so Thunderball is a good Connery one. I think overall, like maybe overall, I don't know. It's like a Casino Royale and Skyfall are two. Those are. It took me a long time to enjoy Skyfall because it's so different. But just like pound for pound, Casino Royale is so exciting. I remember
yeah
like
the
just
poker scene is like one of the craziest
acting.
scenes ever.
Well, the parkour fight through the
Yeah,
construction in the beginning is just really like wow, so cool. And then the whole Miami International Airport sequence on the tarmac, that's really exciting. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I just always I love Pierce. I thought Pierce was a lot of fun. I thought
because that's
Tomorrow
who you
Never Dies.
grew up on, playing
That,
Goldeneye. Like that was that era because we didn't get one for a while before that, right? It was
that's it.
88 or 89 was Dalton was done, and then
Yep.
Bronze that didn't happen until 95, 96, I guess maybe. But
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, where they like really brought him back. But you know that was Martin Campbell, the same director who did Goldeneye, did Casino Royale.
oh really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, yeah, we need the guy who sort of reinvigorated the franchise last time. Let's bring him back, and he did it again, which is really damn impressive. Martin, he's a great
Yeah, yeah.
director. He also won Mask of Zorro, which is
Oh,
another
okay.
phenomenal, like super dope action track record. Which is like it's hard to make an action movie that you give a shit about. You know, that you're like, oh, it's a good
Yeah.
movie. Um,
That'll be you, dude. You'll do your Bond movie in 10 years. Who will be the Bond? I don't know, but
it'll
Daniel
be
Craig's
fun.
crushing it, man. The guy's now he's going to be a detective for 10
I know.
movies or something.
Yeah,
He's good, so they're good.
he's a good. Yeah, Ryan's movies are a lot of fun. I like those a lot. Those are really
Yeah.
cool.
Thanks,
Well, dude, this
Nathan.
super pleasure. Thank you so much, Doug.